Happy Tuesday, everyone. My name is meteorologist Heather Kay, and it's time for our daily hail forecast, sponsored as always by C3 Group, Merlin Law Group, American Contractor Show, as well as Atlas Roofing. Thank you guys for sponsoring our videos. So let's get right into our weather headlines. We do have a small wind risk in Southern California associated with a low pressure system in the Pacific, so we'll talk about that. And then we have a risk on Thursday, possibly. So we'll get into some more details with that as well. But then the big story for the next few days is tracking Tropical Storm Nicole and where she's going to be going and whether or not Nicole will become a hurricane. So we have all the details for you with this system as well. But before we get into our forecast, we do have one event. It's ongoing. Today is the last day for RoofCon down in Orlando, Florida. This is at the Orange County Convention Center. So we are down there again. Today is the last day. This is a 3-day event. So come on by and say hi to us there at RoofCon. So here are our current conditions across the country. We do have some things going on. We have some showers going on from basically the Dakotas eastward into Minnesota, southward into parts of central Oklahoma. We have, again, that system out in the west that could be producing some severe wind gusts for parts of California this afternoon. But we're going to zoom right into Florida first. We have Tropical Storm Nicole out here in the Atlantic. It's now an actual tropical storm, and she's not subtropical anymore as she's heading into some warmer waters, heading off to the west. We already have some showers moving on into parts of central Florida, as well as those tropical storm watches and warnings in effect for much of the state. And then again, we have some showers going on for parts of Minnesota. Nothing severe, maybe a rumble, thunder or two. That extends down into parts of western Iowa, eastern Nebraska, and some scattered showers down into the Central Plains as well. And then we have this low pressure system spinning off of the coast of California, bringing in some heavier rain and some snow in the higher elevations. And we'll be watching Southern California again this afternoon and evening for the potential for some severe wind gusts associated with this low pressure system. So zooming back out, taking a look at our temperatures, pretty comfortable in the southern part of the U.S. at 79 in Atlanta, 85 in Miami. Those 70s and 80s continue to stretch off to the west and to the south here, from basically southern Oklahoma southward. So Dallas, you're comfortable at 75, 84 in Houston, but the northern part of the country, basically with this next trough moving on in, it is a lot colder. It is only 46 in Minneapolis. Comfortable though in Denver still at 68. And here are our dew points. For the most part, most of us are pretty comfortable out there, but there is some moisture down in the southern part of the U.S. along the Gulf Coast and getting up into the Central Plains with dew points in the upper 50s to even some upper 60s from New Orleans to Dallas. So here's our future radar for California, specifically the Los Angeles area later on this afternoon. This is at 3 p.m. Central Time. So let's see, they're in what Pacific, so that's a few hours behind. I don't feel like doing math. It's at what, 1 p.m. Pacific? Yeah. Anyway, so this line will be continuing to push off to the east and could bring us some scattered wind gusts to the Los Angeles area, and then that activity will continue to push off to the east as we get into this evening. San Diego, you could get a severe wind gust or two, but I think the best chance will be in the Los Angeles area as we get into the next few hours. And then just some heavier rain here as we get into tomorrow morning. So here is today's wind forecast. Again, just a small area in Southern California. Los Angeles, you're basically the main city here, to see anywhere from 60 to 70 mile-per-hour wind gusts as that potential line of storms move on through the area again this afternoon and into early this evening. And now we're going to jump into tomorrow. We do have Tropical Storm Nicole out in the Atlantic, and she is forecasted to potentially become a Category 1 hurricane, but we're going to wake up tomorrow. More rain will be ongoing in Florida, and although she's not expected to make landfall until late, well, basically really early Thursday morning, we could see a spin up or two here in Florida for our Wednesday. So that's tomorrow at noon Central Time. And then we get into our evening tomorrow, and you can see some more bands associated with Nicole. We'll be moving on to the west and into Central Florida. So again, a spin up tornado or two is not out of the question here for the state. And then as we get into late tomorrow evening, this is at 11 p.m. Central Time, so this is at midnight Eastern, just an hour or two away from landfall here, with more bands starting to move on in. And then as we get into early Thursday morning, you can see Nicole's expected to make landfall somewhere here in Central Florida. So here is tomorrow's wind forecast. Again, it's going to be for most of eastern and central Florida associated with Nicole. Most of the winds will be between 60 and 70 miles per hour, and we could see, again, a spin-up tornado or two as well. And then as we get into late Wednesday night into early Thursday morning, that's when we could start to see some hurricane force gusts starting to move on into the eastern central part of Florida. So hopefully you guys are ready to go if you are down in Florida as we are tracking Tropical Storm Nicole. So is there anything else to watch here in terms of severe weather? Well, let's take a look at our jet stream. We do have that very strong trough moving on into the western part of the country as we speak. As we get into the rest of today and getting into tomorrow, that trough will continue to track on to the east. And then as we get into Thursday, that's when it will start to tap into the warm, moist air from the Gulf of Mexico. So we'll point out some areas in just a second on where we'll be watching for the potential for severe weather on our Thursday. But then as we get into the end of our work week, this trough will continue to move off to the east as well as start to dig a bit to the south. So some cooler weather is expected here for much of the country as we get into the end of our work week. And you can see these blue colors continuing to move off to the south from our friends from Canada. And then basically the same deal as we get into the beginning of our Sunday as well. So cooler weather, cooler than average weather is expected as we get into our weekend. So bundle up. So here's our future precipitation. We have Nicole here in the Atlantic and some precipitation again here in parts of Minnesota into Wisconsin as well as in the west. So this is at Wednesday, so tomorrow morning. As we get into tomorrow afternoon and getting into Thursday afternoon, Nicole will be making landfall and then starting to shift to the north. We'll be watching basically the middle of the country for some severe weather. As of right now, it looks like it's going to be more of a wind threat than anything. I don't see any potential for hail at this moment in time. I think it's going to be a line of storms which indicate wind. So basically we'll be watching Minnesota into parts of Wisconsin, Iowa, down into Missouri and Nebraska and southern Kansas as well. And then as we get into Friday, Nicole will start to push off to the east, northeast, and bring some heavy rain to the eastern part of the U.S. We will quiet down here in the middle of the country for our Friday and into Saturday. We could see some heavier rain though for parts of the far southern U.S., but in terms of severe weather, we should be pretty quiet for a few days after we get through Thursday. And then as we get into the end of our work week and into our weekend, you can see Nicole gets off into the Atlantic, and that will be the end of that system. So we're going to take a look at our instability getting basically from tomorrow and into Thursday. We will have some instability in place for tomorrow, but that trough I think will still be too far to the west to really tap into any of this instability. So tomorrow should be pretty quiet, but then as we get into Thursday, this is at noon on Thursday afternoon, you can see some spots here of some instability, not too impressive. Again, I think it's going to be a very narrow line of wind potential, and that's basically it. But things can change here. And then as we get into Friday, those values drop off, and these values here are associated with Nicole. So here is our look ahead forecast for Thursday. So a pretty decent area that we'll be watching. Again, I think as of right now, it looks like it's going to be a wind threat from Minneapolis to parts of western Wisconsin into most of Iowa, maybe as far west as eastern Nebraska. So Omaha, you're in this risk as well. And those chances stretch down to Kansas City and maybe as far south as Wichita. And then we can't forget Nicole in terms of the wind. So that will be down in Florida as well. So here is Nicole, again, out in the Atlantic, making its way off to the west, starting to become a bit more organized as well. And we do have a good amount of watches and warnings out. So we have some tropical storm watches from basically Jacksonville down to Tampa, and then we have tropical storm warnings for areas such as Orlando and down to just north of Miami, and a very small area on the eastern coast of Florida. We have some hurricane warnings in effect, and these will go through basically Thursday afternoon. And so this is where Nicole is expected to go. It looks like the models are in pretty good agreement that she will be making landfall in the eastern central part of the state around 1:30 to Central Time. So that's around 2:30 in the morning Eastern Time on Thursday morning. And then she will track off to the north into Georgia on Friday morning, and then very quickly move off to the northeast as we get into our Saturday morning. So as expected, as we get here in just a second, here we go, tropical storm right now. She is having winds at 60 miles per hour. And as we get into tomorrow morning, still a tropical storm. But then as we get into late Wednesday and very early Thursday morning, Nicole is expected to become a Category 1 hurricane and then again make landfall sometime early Thursday morning. And then as we get into Friday and into our Saturday, Nicole's going to quickly move off to the northeast, potentially still as a weak tropical storm. So stay tuned for more information on that. And then in terms of our climatology, you may be thinking it's a bit late to see some tropical weather this time of the year. And in terms of climatology, it's not zero. So we still have a few more weeks of the season left to go. So today is the 8th, so December 1st will be the end of tropical season. You can see on average, I mean, we could still see stuff going on until the very end of the season. Is there anything else to watch? Well, we do have another disturbance out in the Atlantic. This system has a 30% chance to develop within the next 2 days, as well as a 30% chance to develop into something within the next 5 days. So it may be November, but we are not done yet with tropical weather. So make sure, especially if you're down in Florida and along the southeastern coast of the country. To stay tuned here to Hail Trace with updates on Tropical Storm Nicole. And that, I forgot to put a place mark in there. There's just the one system, you guys. And then lastly, the rain here with Tropical Storm Nicole is expected to be pretty heavy as we get into Thursday morning. Anywhere from 2 to 4 inches of rain is expected, and then that rain will start to pile up as Nicole moves off to the east-northeast as we get into our Friday, and then even more as she moves off to the northeast. So that's all I have for you today. Basically, Nicole's the big story right now until our Thursday risk. So make sure that if you haven't already, that you follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and our TikTok page. And if you have any questions, concerns, if you just want to say hi, you can give us a call at 855-334-4245. You can email us at info@hailtrace.com and check out our website at www.hailtrace.com. And I am meteorologist Heather Kay. I hope you all have a great rest of your Tuesday.